Hello, Frizzle fellas. It's time to rank and review the last 10 books I read. Let's start with the bottom and work our way up to my 5 stars of the month. Rank 10 is Butcher Bird. This is about a man and he is a tattooist and he loves having ink on himself as well. This gets him into trouble because he tattoos a symbol on his body that summons a demon that tries to kill him. After surviving this demon attack with the help of a very hot, mysterious lady, the world of magic around him in this urban fantasy novel is opened to his eyes and he can see all the demons going about their business in the regular world and starts making some enemies. And I was very bored in this book. This book was so focused on having a very punk tone, garish imagery, and really going for that these demons will gross you out, and also I like to listen to rock music and watch old movies. And it was just like so focused on cultivating that and didn't bother cultivating like an interesting plot or character motivations. The like, I got about 25% into this book and gave up on it. If you want to hear a longer rant about it, I have a video where I'm reading it as part of a project and I'll link that in the footnotes for you. I rated Butcher Bird 2 stars and its book tone is unmellow yellow. This is a reader personality test. If you would like to take the book tone test, I've got it linked down in the footnotes for you. The basics of it is red colors are plot focused, blue colors are character focused, yellow colors are atmosphere focused. The pale colors are intellectually driven and the saturated colors are emotionally driven. Next up, rank 9. Becoming? The memoir of Michelle Obama? And I know everyone in the comments is going to not be very happy that I'm ranking it so low, but let me explain. I went into this book with such high expectations. I've heard so many glowing reviews of it, but and I feel like this is such an important story to be told, a story of a Black woman in America finding so much success through her own hard work, and also the story of her husband coming to so much success through so much hard work. And I was really invested for like the first half of this book, and then it just got really repetitive and boring. Like, this book is over 400 pages, and I feel like it's just 100 pages too long. Like, I know that, like, on one hand, the point of a memoir is to accurately portray someone's life, but I feel like on the other hand, the point of a good memoir is to portray that life in a way that makes it a good story, and this one just did not have enough connective tissue, intrigue. After a while, it just felt like the same story and point being made over and over, and by the last chapter, I couldn't wait for this book to end because I was emotionally done with it. Though, I did really, really enjoy, like, the first part, and then all the other parts were just dragging. By the end, it felt like it was just doing the same beats and stories over and over. Like, I get it. It's hard when your husband is a politician and he's always busy and you want him to be there and you also want a career and you're super busy, and I didn't need hundreds of pages hammering home the exact same point. Maybe if you love memoirs much more than I do, you could also love this book. I didn't, and I think that this is a good data point on my quest to figure out what kind of nonfiction I like. Memoirs is not that, I think. I gave Becoming 3 stars. Rank 8 is With a Little Luck. This is a contemporary YA rom-com with a little bit of magic. We're following Jude, a teenage boy who is very shy and can't quite work up the courage to be emotionally vulnerable and ask out his crush, when he discovers a magical good luck charm dice, and then everything in his life starts going good for him. Or is it? And this book really, really took its time with finding that or is it conflict. Like, the first 2/3 of this book is just boring, conflictless, nothing is going on, there's nothing to really challenge our characters. And then at the end, it's like, oh yeah, wait, we're supposed to have a plot here, and then makes one. But like, despite how cute it was to follow a protagonist that is so into D&D and following all of these really nice characters, like, I needed some internal conflict. I needed some angst. I needed some drama, and there wasn't any. And I think sometimes following a super shy, passive character can be fun if you really explore the pros and cons of that and get into it, but this book did not explore or get into it, and instead it was just, we're following a really passive, shy character who never really makes his own decisions and just has everything thrust upon him. which was extra boring and hard to root for him when he wasn't actually like doing things. It was just things happening to him. I gave, with a little luck, 3 stars. Its book tone is resolution blue, and if you would like to hear longer thoughts and rant on it, I've got a video where I'm reading it in a vlog, and I'll link that down in the footnotes. Next up is Gideon the Ninth. This is a book about a swordswoman who is a slave to a magical necromancer royal family. She is desperate to get out of this life. She hates the princess. When the princess, who is a necromancer and also hates our swordswoman Gideon, gets invited to a galaxy-wide contest where the prize might be immortality. And she needs a bodyguard, so they both go along to this contest. And then nothing happens for several hundred pages, where it's just this overly bloated cast of characters who are exploring this haunted house out in space, and they don't really know what the contest is for a long time that they're even supposed to be participating in, and then things finally start shaking up when the characters start dying, and then it becomes a locked room murder mystery, and then finally everything shakes up in the end when everything's revealed and we have a big bombastic action sequence. Along the way in the book we also have this bond between our protagonist Gideon and her princess necromancer, where they slowly get to know each other better and learn that they don't hate each other quite as much as they thought and start developing a romance. Now, I really loved the writing style. I think that this author is incredibly skilled at crafting a paragraph, weaving in nice imagery. I really did not like the narrator's voice of Gideon, where her humor is very kind of crude slapstick, and I just didn't think it was funny. I thought it was annoying. I really liked the way that this book handled the budding relationship between Gideon and the necromancer princess, because it did have all the nice angst that I like in that kind of relationship building, but I really hated how many characters there were. This cast was really big and they all had a bajillion names, and I couldn't keep track of it, and then it made it really hard to get invested in the competition or the murder mystery when I didn't know who anyone was. So I had a lot of mixed feelings about this book. Overall, I did enjoy my time reading it. Right? It's a wild ride all the way through, but I also really didn't like my time reading it because it was a confusing ride that I was having a really hard time connecting or getting invested in all the way through. I don't think I'm going to read the next book in the series, but I could be persuaded. I gave Gideon the Ninth 3 stars, and its book tone is unmellow yellow, and definitely I would highly recommend this book to people who are fans of big, confusing world building, really in-your-face humor, because this is a book for the yellow types, 100%. Alas, my type is thistle purple, very much not a yellow. Rank 6 is Chalice of the Gods. This is Percy Jackson, book 11. After Percy has had all of his world-saving adventures in the previous 2 series in this world, he has dreams of going off to college with his girlfriend. His girlfriend has very successfully gotten into the fancy college because she's a genius. He's having a little bit more trouble, and he needs some really good letters of recommendation from some Greek gods. In order to get these letters, he has to do some quests. So there were some parts of this book that I felt like were really strong and some parts of this book that I felt like were really weak. This book both captured the feeling of the fun and the goofiness of a lot of the Percy Jackson books, and also captured the transitioning from like middle grade to a little bit older young adult, where the concerns are more about like getting into college, the concerns are about having a good relationship with your long-term girlfriend. It's really a book that's dealing with like quarter life crisis kind of themes, and I felt like it really dealt with them well in a way that I connected to. This book like aged up the series a little bit without losing the fun tone of the earlier books or making it inaccessible for younger readers. Like, I wouldn't hesitate to hand this to a 10-year-old either. But it's clear where the target audience of the first Percy Jackson books were like 10-year-olds, this one's target audience feels more like older teenagers. This book also excelled at just being like completely readable. It was fast, it was fun, I was never bored, I was engaged every page. But this book also had some issues. And I think it mostly stems from this book feeling a lot like a cash grab. Like, yes, this is a story that the author wanted to tell, but is it a coincidence that this book came out coinciding with the release of the Percy Jackson series on Disney+? Probably not. It very much feels like a revival and trying to really cash in on all that nostalgia and resurgence of popularity of Percy Jackson. and the book is constantly referencing events that happened in earlier Percy Jackson books. Not like a little bit. A lot of it. Like every few pages it felt like almost it'd be like, oh yeah, remember that one time that we fought Medusa and that thing happened and that thing happened? Wow, that was a fun time. You should go rebuy the books and watch the show. I have read all of the Percy Jackson books, some of them multiple times. But I didn't have the nostalgia heartstrings that this book was trying to resonate with, and it was just so annoying that it was constantly happening. Another thing that I didn't love about this book is it's very mini quest within quests, which is the Percy Jackson formula. But sometimes that did make a lot of these mini side quests feel unimportant, where it wasn't clear how this was really benefiting the larger quest or how it was tying into our characters. I think one of the things that made it so apparent that there were so many references to previous books was I was also reading this along with my book club, many of which the members hadn't read the rest of the Percy Jackson series, but they did vote for this book. So I didn't make them read it against their will. I run a book club on Discord for my patrons. It's a few dollars a month if you would like to join. Every month I put up a few books and people vote on what ones they want to read together. And this is what the book club is reading next. Total landslide win of the vote. Every single vote went to Chalice of the Gods. No one voted for a single other book. And I think it was a very successful book club read where it seems like everyone who read it at least liked it. But I don't know how much really loved it, you know? Especially the people who had absolutely zero nostalgia for the original series because they'd never read it before. I gave Chalice of the Gods 3 stars and its book tone is anchor gray. Rank 5 is active memory. This one was a fun one. This takes place in a futuristic world much like our own. One of the main differences is that nearly everyone has a brain chip that gives them an AI assistant and augmented reality. We are following a teenage girl named Marisa, and she is a very competent hacker, and she has a group of friends and they have taken down powerful evil corporations in the past. That was like book 1 and 2. I started with book 3. It was actually a very nice experience jumping into this one. The author did really good onboarding. This book, a lot of it is exploring a family feud between Marisa's family and the local crime boss. She doesn't know why her family has this feud. She just knows that they hate each other's guts. And then something happens to spark this feud flaring up again, and she decides to investigate and gets entrapped in other plots of gang wars and corporate espionage and bioengineering interesting things. I think the premise of this book is awesome. The world building is so well done, so well explained, well balanced. The characters were interesting and compelling. Enough personality that I was along for the ride. The plot, I think, is where my enjoyment of this breaks down. Where the plot felt very one note, that it was always just like, let's investigate the new lead, and they just kept doing that over and over and over, and it never felt like it was challenging the characters in new ways, or really that it was upping the stakes at any point. It was just kind of like samesies, we might die, but it's okay, because we're cool teenagers stakes at the entire point. So I liked this book, and I loved some parts of it, but I don't think I loved the entire book. I gave Active Memory 3 stars, and its book tone is Xanthus Orange. Rank 4 is One Dark Window. Yes, I read the trendy romantasy. I heard some reviews of it that described it as like gothic and really smart and fun world building and low on the tropey melodrama, and that sounded like exactly my type of romantasy. Was it? Meh. I mean, it was kind of my type, but not quite in the end. One Dark Window follows a girl named Elspeth, and she has a dark secret. She has a magical beast living in her head that she calls the Nightmare, and he's always spewing sinister rhymes at her. A little unhinged. This is her secret because in this kingdom, this kind of wild magic that pops up is seen as evil, and the people who have it tend to get killed. What is the approved magic in this kingdom is there is a set of magical cards that give the users certain abilities and also drawbacks and curses of using them. And there's this legend that if you assemble the entire magical card deck, then you get power over this other magical apocalypse thing that's happening. So a lot of this book is all of our characters trying to find all of the cards to collect them, while also trying to hide the fact that our main character Elspeth has this magic in her. And then there's a romance. No, alas, it isn't between Elspeth and the monster in her head, which I was kind of expecting going into this book, and I was disappointed that that wasn't the direction the book went. I'm sure that if I had read the blurb or looked into this book a little bit more, I would have known that it was a romance with a real human man. How boring, am I right? and it was kind of boring. I didn't super feel their chemistry. I felt like it was a little forced in there. The steamy scene in this book did almost feel like a jump scare in how much it felt like it came out of nowhere without enough build-up. But what this book does have going for it is it's very readable. I cared about our characters. I cared about their quest. I don't care enough to read the sequel though, and actually find out how their quest ends. I gave One Dark Window 3 stars, and its book tone is jade green. Rank number 3 is Even Though I Knew the End. The premise and the vibes of this book were immaculate. This takes place in 1940 Chicago with magic, where we are following a woman who is a private investigator investigating magical murders. And yes, that is some of my favorite tropes. I love the urban fantasy. I love the detective. I love that our protagonist here is a woman when often we see in this role a man. This book leans so hard into the noir feeling without leaning also into male gaze, which I love because oftentimes those go hand in hand and I like one of them and not the other. Our main character, Helen, is on the case of a magical serial killer. And she kind of wants to back off and leave this investigating to the professionals when she's given an offer to investigate that she can't refuse. Most of her motivations in this book stem from she wants to have a happy life with her girlfriend, but the girlfriend herself doesn't play much of a part in the story. So I loved the first third of this book. Then the second third of this book, things shifted away from just hard-boiled detective investigating into expanding a lot of the world building, which I felt like was way too much and overpowered this little novella, because it felt like the entire plot kind of took a backseat for a large portion of this novella as we just got the world building of all of this angel demon stuff that's happening. But I was still having a good time because I still loved the noir feeling of this book. Very well done. The ending chapter I utterly despise. I have a very long rant about it in a video. I'll link that down in the footnotes for you if you want to watch it. But because I absolutely adored the first part of this book, like 5 stars, was obsessed with it, loved it so much, I still decided to give this book 4 stars. And its book tone is anchor gray. Can we just stop a second and talk about how we had to get all the way up to rank 3 before I found a 5-star? There were so many 3 stars this month. I was just wallowing in these okay but not fantastic books. I mean, much better than all of those being 2 stars. And we do have some good ones up here at the top that I'm about to tell you about. But I really, really need some more 4 stars in my life. 5 stars would also be great, thank you. Rank 2 is Ocean's Echo. My favorite genre by the math and statistics is sci-romance. And I've been really trying to pick up more and more sci-fi romances because I want to find more of my favorite books because they're gonna come from my favorite genre, am I right? And it's been a lot of wrong, where I found a lot of ones that I haven't loved. And then I find something like this one, Ocean's Echo, which reminds me how much I love this genre and why it's my absolute favorite. And yes, I need to pick up more books exactly like this one. We get 2 point of views in this book. One is Tennel, and he's a total playboy, and he started to get in trouble with his aunt, who is also the president of this space planet. So she, wanting to get him out of the way before he causes even bigger scandals, makes him enlist in the space army, where he's assigned on a spaceship that is going out into the far galaxy to do exploration missions. The catch is that he's also been assigned to be mind-linked with a superior officer so he doesn't have mental autonomy anymore. Big no-no, big high stakes there because no one wants this to happen. The other point of view we're following is the guy who has been assigned to mind-link with him. He is very organized, he loves the rules, he's got a lot emotionally invested into this space exploration mission. And he doesn't really want to do a mind link, but he loves following the rules. He's gonna follow orders unless maybe these orders are a little fishy. And so starts their tentative collaboration and getting to know each other and developing emotional bonds and trying not to develop this psychic bond. Yes, one of the hearts of this book is a romance between these two. It is so slow burn and so carefully done and so focused on the other heart of this book, which is both of these characters' emotional journeys, their own character arcs, and how interacting with each other helps them personally develop and complete their character arcs and also become more compatible and form this deep friendship. It was exquisite! And then we also get the sci-fi part of this book where we have political civil war action happening. We have interesting space exploration and really delving into the sci-fi aspects of all of that. We have this new sci-fi culture and world building being explored. I loved every page, every scene of this book. I was engrossed and I'm obsessed with it. And definitely one of the reasons I'm obsessed with it is because of its like perfect pacing, where every time we'd get like one conflict resolved, we'd always get a new one building on the old one. Chef's kiss. I loved it. I gave Ocean's Echo 5 stars. And its book tone is resolution blue. You might be wondering, if that's only rank 2, this book that you absolutely loved every page of and was completely obsessed with, what can top that? Well, it's a reread from my favorite author, of course, which is Falcon. Falcon is only debatably a novel. I think Falcon is best described as 2 companion novellas that are lovingly intertwined together into one book. Because the first half of this book and the second half are following different plot lines that are interconnected in interesting ways. In the first half of the book, we are following a prince of a sci-fi planet. He is like 3rd in line for the throne, never expected that he'd be thrust into the political sphere. He's doing his best to avoid it. But the king is starting to make more and more bad decisions that are unsettling the country and causing all of this political unrest. And though our protagonist has never really had a passion for politics, he does have a passion for his people, and he sees them hurting and decides that he's going to get into politics and do something about it. And starts making connections with like the underworld and trying to figure out and unravel this knot. And like, what does he need to remake himself in order to make a difference in it? A lot of the book is about his interpersonal relationships as he makes new friends in his political endeavors, and also as he has more and more strained relationships with his family as he gets to the bottom of all of this. And this first novella, it's kind of like a tragedy where you watch him break down throughout the book, trying to build a new him, but a lot of it struggling and just making more and more problems. And then the second novella, the second half of this book, is following him 10 years later. And he's in a very different place in life. Now, he's one of the best hotshot pilots in the galaxy, ferrying cargo from planet to planet faster than anyone else can do it. How did he get to this new stage of life? Well, you figure it out slowly through flashbacks. He's kind of at the end of the phase of his life of being a spaceship pilot and is ready to retire, but a job comes for him that he can't refuse. And the deeper he gets into this job, the more he realizes how political it is, and it really sparks memories of him, of his time getting into politics, and resonates in all of these interesting ways across the decades. So this book is kind of hard to pitch, and you've just watched me struggle through trying to give you a spoiler-free pitch of why this book is so fun, and I think what really captures it for me is the writing style of this author. I love. She has such vivid imagery without going into purple prose. The plots aren't slow-paced, but they aren't breakneck. It's always really relishing in the characters' emotions and how the plots are affecting them, while also giving you enough plot to like keep yourself entertained. And one of the reasons why it's so hard to really pitch this book and give you the synopsis is because so much of it is spoilers. This book keeps its cards so close to the chest for so long, where you don't know exactly what's going on or exactly how everything connects till like the very end of the 2 parts of these novellas. And the way that those reveals just like knock my socks off every time, even though I know they're coming, because they're so built up intricately with all of these little foreshadowing moments. Like, it's a masterpiece. It only explains things when it wants to, and when it wants to explain things is at the very end when you are completely invested in what's going on. It's triumphant. I love it. I've read this book like 4 times now. 5 stars. And its book tone is Celadon Green. And those are the last 10 books I read. And you might be interested in watching this video of mine next, where I'm going deeper into book reviews for ones that you only got little rants for here. Here's the big rants.